Hello, Year 5. This is Mrs. Hattrick, and I'm really excited that I'm able to bring you an art lesson. It's a great opportunity for me to work with other year groups. I'm really excited to do it today. So I'm going to take you through a lesson all about continuous line drawing, which I'll demonstrate to you later. And your stimulus, the thing you're going to be drawing, is you're going to be looking at some really cool Google Earth images. So images taken from satellites down onto Earth, and they're going to be images of Anglo-Saxon sites, so burial sites, interesting castles, and you're going to use these to do continuous line drawings. Right, I'm going to share my screen with you now, so you can all have a good look at that. If you can see that now. So here we go. The images that you're going to use for your stimulus, the things you're going to be drawing, are a site from Sutton Hoo, one from Offers Dyke, Dawes Castle, and some burial sites in Greenwich. You can see here, this is one that on the screen here, that I've done myself. This is a Google image of Sutton Hoo, and this is a continuous line drawing that I've done. So the idea is continuous line drawing is a fantastic way for you to get become really, really fluid with your drawing, and it's a really good exercise because it builds up your hand-eye coordination, and it also makes sure that you really look, which is an absolute key when you're drawing. So the idea is that you can use a pen, and ideally a black pen if you have one, and you can just keep your fluid movements going, keep really, really solid fluid movements when you're drawing, because the idea is you do not take your pen off the paper at all. It's really important, as you can see this image down here, that you can use some thick lines, so the weight of the line, heavy lines, go over and draw lots to make really interesting marks when you're drawing. So I have got a little video of me doing some continuous line drawing. And you can see I've already started the drawing, and actually I finish and take my pen off, but that's because I didn't want to do the whole exercise on video, because I thought it might be not very interesting for you. So here's a little example of what I mean by continuous line drawing. So as you can see, I'm going very, very slowly all the time. I'm looking at the image above here. I'm not taking my pen off at all. I'm doing very interesting marks, swirling around to get those dark shadows of the trees, and I'm going back, up and down. This is how I increase the weight and the darkness of the line by going over and over. I'm doing it quite fast. Actually, you can do it much slower than that, because it's really, really important to keep slowly looking. But if you see, I'm wiggling my pencil around, because that's the trees at the top here of the picture. It's very important in art, you get lots of interesting mark making. You don't want it just straight lines, because then your image looks very boring. So that's an example. But if I'd carried on, I would have done the whole picture in one go, which I'll show you an example I did earlier. Then, once you've done your continuous line drawing, the next thing to do is to add to that, because you want to add some more interesting marks. Now, you can do this however you want. You can do this by really going for it. You can hold a bunch of pencils and you can scribble if you want to make some interesting marks. You can vary the weight of the marks, have dots and scribbles. It's really about getting really interesting. I want you to have a look. So these lines on this image down here, as if they were fields, and you can imagine there's stripes. So again, you want to add lots and lots of detail to the surface. And this image I've put in here is because what I've used, I know we're all at home, we don't have paints with us. I've actually been using tea and coffee as my paint to stain, and just wax crayons to do wax resist, not wax crayons, wax candles for wax resist. So you see on the next slide, this is the material I've used. I've used different strengths of tea, 2 different strengths of tea here, and 2 different strengths of coffee. I didn't have any brushes at home, so I've used a feather instead of my brush, and you can see here's just a black pen and a candle. I made all these really interesting marks, and I experimented with them beforehand. You see, this is like my palette would have at school down here. I even got a bit of tissue to use that as a dab. And I added, you can see these 2 images here. Once I've done my continuous line drawing, I've added some interesting tones and colours, and that's like a bit of a stain to make it look more interesting. And then to take it even further, when that's dried, I used the edge of my pencil and I started working in. You can see I have these quite swirly marks here. And then I rubbed into them, not because I made a mistake, because I don't want you to be using rubbers to rub out mistakes, because you can work into those mistakes and make them something interesting. This is to add even more interesting marks. So you're doing layers and layers upon marks. You can get a bit of staining going. And the lovely thing is when you add wet to the pen, it bleeds out into the paper and looks really, really interesting. So here we go. Here's a final progression of, that's the photograph that I used. This is an example of my continuous line drawing, which I used. And then this was my final attempt, which was I've added some graphite, some pencil over the top. I've added some staining, so the brown is staining in tea and coffee. And then I've got a thick black pen to get more interesting marks. And I've added this sort of watery effect here by simply adding water to the pen. So what happens is I've got really interesting textured, quite abstract art of an aerial view of Sutton Hoo. So I would really like you to have a go at doing that for your project this week. I would love to see any work. You can send it through to the Year 5 email and they will forward it on to me. It would be fabulous if I had an opportunity to see some of the brilliant work that you can produce in Year 5. So I hope you're all looking after yourself, making sure you're getting outside, getting lots of fresh air, and good luck with your art project.